Meeting to order. It is 5:31 on Monday, May 18th. This is the Rockingham School Board. We'll do Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Have you got our virtual flag there, Mr. Pratt?
Last week we just pretended.
Oh, did we? Okay, we'll pretend there's a flag there. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which
it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So adjustments to agenda, we're gonna strike 8BA and 9BA1.
BA and what was the other one?
9A1.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
There you go.
Why are we striking those?
Per request of the superintendent and other board members who feel that they are not school board mission. George?
In regards to the letter, any chance we could discuss it and revise it to something that the school board would be willing to get on board with? I know it's kind of directed in a specific area, but speaking as thinking of the entire board, how could we ask the town to look at their financials to help the situation? Maybe we could revise it. So
let's have that discussion when we get down to what is it? 8B, which is where that one was, where the letter was under. So we can discuss it there. We can discuss it there.
Okay.
Rick, do we want executive session?
We will have an executive session to update the board on negotiations at some point, yes.
I guess before I am good with that, is the letter already been submitted, or is this for discussion tonight?
It was for discussion tonight.
Not submitted.
Not submitted.
I'd have to say leave it on there. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's a voting thing.
Well, we can discuss it when we get to it.
Okay.
So it will sort of be left on there then, because we will discuss it when we get to it. Review and approve board minutes for May 4th, 2020. Did everyone get a chance to read them?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
All in favor, or any discussion?
I have a discussion item.
On the minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
So we were supposed to talk about the stipends in this meeting. Well, it doesn't actually say this meeting, it just says in a future board meeting, but I don't see them on the agenda other than I don't really see them. So I don't know if that was left off intentionally or because, I'd just like to get some clarification on that. I know you weren't here at the last meeting, so.
Okay, well, we can discuss that later, I guess. But as the minutes are written, is there anything in the minutes that's missing or needs to be modified or adjusted?
No.
All in favor of the minutes as written? Start with Jason Terry, because he's first in line on the way they line up on my computer screen.
I get
Aye.
my,
Priscilla?
I can't seem to see you guys now. I don't know what happened.
George?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved as written. Communications and public comments?
I do not see anything in the chat room.
Okay. Policies, do we have anything for policy committee?
There it is. Okay.
No, I do not.
Superintendent, central office staff, district updates.
Most of it, I just call up my report. I do have some updates that I would like to share. I also I sent this out, my Google Doc of my May report out to all the board members. As I update it, you'll be able to see the changes. The most recent development, I think, really is around the House Ways Committee that took place on Thursday. Some of the key points were the House Ways Committee on May 14th spoke about revoting on all budgets this summer. The feeling is revenues are not enough to make up the current $167 million gap. So that's being looked at, not just the boards that haven't approved budgets, but there's a possibility that all budgets will have the option to be revoted on. The revote on the budget would make it very difficult, if not impossible. What they're saying is for some districts navigate the teachers' collective bargain agreement in regards to salaries. So that's why they're looking at that. Other than that, I don't think there is a whole lot of changes. Due to the today you have soft openings going up around Vermont started, so they're anticipating that we could see an increase in the COVID numbers in Vermont with these new openings, but they're going to keep an eye on that. And for the group sizes and stuff, this right now it's still at 10 for large groups, but around June 1st they may raise it to 25. One of the other things that the House Ways Committee did talk about is that without any additional aid coming in, that what they're trying to avoid is a tax rate being raised 22 to 23 cents higher than it currently is. So they have been actively looking at that. Another possibility, what they're proposing the tax commissioner is another possibility would be to fund a partial year education expense using a so-called skinny budget, do the first payment from the education fund, and ask districts to revise the budget for consideration by the voters in the late summer or early fall based on revised tax commission letter and current revenue projections, similar to what the state does now. So that's what they were looking at possibly proposing. So that's this week's update on what's going on in the state, and the principals can share more in regards to what they've been doing locally.
Any questions for Mr. Pratt? Do we have any principals here?
I'm here.
I'm here.
Well, who would like to start with a report to us first?
I can go first.
Okay.
Go ahead, Laura.
Thanks. So hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Since our last meeting, the elementary principals and I developed some elementary dismissal report cards, given the critical indicators and the work that our essential arts teachers have done. I'll just say that I have thoroughly enjoyed my work with the elementary principals and all the collaboration that we've done since this unfortunate dismissal, but it's been great as far as colleagueship and working together on projects that move us all in the same direction. F&P trainings, Fountas and Pinnell classroom trainings. We will be at Saxons River working with Janie and Andy T, reading coach and literacy coach and consultant on June 1st and June 8th, and then full days on June 18th and 19th. To get up to speed and trained in the new materials that'll be coming to us for next year. Let's see, I've talked with George and found out that Jason was the CIP board rep, and Jason Benson, I should clarify because there's two Jasons. And so Jason Benson will be meeting with the Saxons River team to review our continuous improvement plan. Just made contact this weekend, and so hopefully that will happen this week. Let's see, on May 27th, we have the incoming kindergarten family meeting via Zoom. So we have an hour's worth of engaging activities and a Q&A session for incoming kindergarten families. Doing the best that we can with that to make sure that they're welcomed and answer any questions that they may have. Let's see, all Saxons River elementary families are now connected. So they all have internet in at least one household. So that is great news. Last week, I held individual meetings with all my staff members, which were very, very helpful. Continue to have weekly staff meetings and a weekly 3-4 team meeting and a weekly K2 team meeting as well. Much like I think Karen shared at the last meeting, on May 7th, we started a staff lunch bunch just to get staff together on an informal basis to kind of chat, share ideas, and because we're usually all together all the time. So just we were just thinking of different wellness things to do. Our reading teacher began end of the year running records with the students that she serves, and we continue to try to provide like a weekly fun, engaging activity. Last week we did a paper ball challenge with the kids where we made a video and then asked them to send in videos. This week we're doing like Hearts for Hope challenge, same thing, a teacher video followed by a student video with clips that parents send in. And we're also working on end of the year celebrations in the planning stages of the 4th grade move up ceremony, which is scheduled for June 9th with a rain date of June 10th. It'll be parking lot style. And we're also planning an all school reverse parade scheduled for June 12th. That's it.
Thanks, Ms. Hazard. Anyone have any questions for her? I saw that Jason Benson joined us, so let's make sure he gets on the record, Josh. Ms. Bukowski.
Sure. Good
Priscilla's
evening.
got a question.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say that I'm impressed with all the parades and all the activities that are going on. I'm hoping to get to some of them.
Thanks, Priscilla.
You're welcome.
Good evening. You know, we're having a lot of success with our transition to continuity of learning. It presented some challenges and always will, but it's also provided us with some unanticipated consequences. And, you know, one of those is it's given us the ability to learn more about our students' lives outside of school at our all terrier meeting, which we do by grade level. A week ago, we had a virtual pet parade, you know, where the kids logged in and showed their pet or shared about their pet, you know, strictly optional. That was a lot of fun. And this past week, we had Spirit Week, a virtual Spirit Week, which ended with Purple Pride Day on Friday to coincide with our Friday ATM. Our teachers are constantly finding new ways to try and engage and sharing a lot of things. We have our Thursday snack and share, very similar to exactly what Laura talked about, where we go through and troubleshoot a lot of things. I had set up an appointment with Rick for this Thursday to review the Bellows Falls Middle School Continuous Improvement Plan. And as we continue on also, our attendance has improved. We're up to, through Friday, an average daily attendance of 89.4%. And that would encompass all of the days that we've had remote learning so far. Meal distribution. We've had a little bit of a decline in the pickups by about 20 to 30 meals per event. We're not sure why that is. We've had some theories. Is it that the weather's gotten a little better? Is it that some parents are returning to work and it's more difficult for them to pick up meals? We're not really sure, but it's something we are monitoring. And we have plans underway for our moving up ceremony, which will be on Monday, June 15th. We've secured a photographer for that, which we normally don't have, but under the circumstances we felt was important. We're taking care of the certificates and other mementos using a drive-in model, probably at the high school parking lot. And, we're starting to also, we're planning our end of the year celebratory parade. I have a committee working to put that together as well. And in conclusion, we had our first BFMS opening task force meeting this morning. A lot of the discussion focused on the 3 possible scenarios for opening school in the fall, the social, emotional, and academic needs of our students when they do come back. And the more we hear that it's the social, emotional that is really going to have to start out to be at the forefront before we can really dive into the academics. We continue to have a lot more questions and concerns with regard to the opening, but I'm sure that as we continue to meet and as we get more guidance from the AOE, we'll start to get answers. That's it.
Questions for Ms. Bukowski?
Rick, I just wanted to add a little, elaborate on the task force. I had asked all principals to organize a task force comprised of school administration, nurse, special ed, teacher, counselors, to start looking at the 3 different scenarios that we were given in regards to opening. And those 3 scenarios are a hybrid model, meaning the schools would be open and some students just would not be returning based on their comfort level and their family's comfort level. The second one is as it stands right now. And the third one would be if we were all back in the schools. I think the only one we have a plan for right now is the one that we're currently under. And so that's what the mission was, the task was for each task force at each school, is to start looking and at least generating the questions that we may have, where I can relay on to the state and Secretary of Education for all these 3 different scenarios. So I just wanted to elaborate if some of the other principals speak about the task force, that's what they're talking about.
Thank you, Chris. Any more questions or response to Ms. Bukowski's report? George? Unmute yourself, George.
There we go. Sorry about that. In terms of attendance, so I'm just going by my 7th grader. I think she's supposed to check into each classroom every day. If she was to check into 3 out of 4 classrooms, does that mean that's a 75% attendance for the day?
No, they only have to show up one time and log in, et cetera, to be counted present for the day.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Priscilla?
Yes, do you have a date for the parade at the end of the year, Karen? Or is that still planned?
It's June 16th with a rain date of June 17th. And our moving up is the 15th with a rain date of the 16th. And I'll be talking more about that in, probably at our next board meeting.
Well, what happens if you have a rain date on the 15th? Does that mean you move both of them, the 16th and 17th?
No, we would do probably both on the 16th then.
Okay, thank you.
I wouldn't want to take a chance that the 17th would rain.
I would say anything at this point would be weather dependent. I would assume that any plans would be carried forth regardless of weather, just at a different date. I would hope nothing would be scratched.
No further discussion from Ms. Bukowski. We'll move on to Mr. Nemlich.
Good evening, everybody. Let's see. So our attendance is holding right about 85%, which is, I think, where it was last time. Obviously, instruction is continuing. I just want to point out, too, we have a number of paras who are reaching out to students throughout each week, helping students with their academic studies. I think it's really important to acknowledge those efforts. Teachers are working on rosters for next year. They're starting to work on report cards for the end of this year. We do have an evening for incoming kindergarten parents coming up on the 27th, much like what Laura spoke about. Let's see. I'm working on a collection of images from staff and students demonstrating Habit 7, which is finding balance in your life. And we'll be putting that together into a little montage of what's going on when kids aren't glued to a screen. Fourth grade is planning their end of year celebration. I don't know exactly which way they're going to go at this point. It will be perhaps either a drive-by reverse model or perhaps an assembly in the parking lot at the high school. Our race raffle, which had to be postponed because we had to cancel the race, that's going to actually take place this Thursday as a Facebook Live event. And I reached out to parents to get some feedback on what's working for them and heard from a number of them, both positive and not so positive, just going through some rough stuff, but got some good feedback, and which I think is going to be very helpful as we think about next fall if we find ourselves working in this model. So I'm pleased to hear that from them. Let's see if there's anything else I need to share. Oh, I do have one change of position for next year that I just wanted to let you know about. Carrie Pickering is going to move back into the classroom to fill an opening in our first grade. One of our first grade teachers is retiring, and that's Helen Hearn. And Carrie is going to step into that role next year. So other than that, I think that's it.
And what has Carrie been doing?
She's a reading specialist and data facilitator.
Okay.
So unfortunately, that position is gone by the wayside, and that's a position that's been at Central for over 20 years. So this is gonna hurt.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Nemlich?
You don't know when the event will be for their finish of the year?
No, I'm waiting to hear back from fourth grade on those. We'll get to that. Tomorrow is our staff meeting, so we'll nail down those dates.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Thanks, Keith.
Yep.
Business office. That would be you, Mr. Pratt.
So I did want to give an update. I sent an email out at the beginning of the week that we did hire a new chief financial officer / business manager who will start on July 1, who'll be taking over for Edie Lee Cole. His name is James Breeze, and I believe I sent that letter out to all the board members. So I wanted to see if anyone had any questions in regards to his position.
Priscilla?
Can you tell us what he'll be doing? Will he be doing what Edie did previously, or is there a different format for him?
He'll pretty much be taking over Edie's role and what she was doing, and we're hoping to kind of continue to organize the business office so things are working more efficiently. Yeah, he's pretty much taken over Edie's role and what she'll be doing.
Okay. I also wanted to comment that thank you for you to getting back all that information to me as well and answer the questions that I had, Mr. Pratt.
You're welcome.
Do we have any financial reports for today, or?
Note the same ones that we gave at the last meeting.
Okay. So we'll have one for the next meeting?
Yes, you will.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Pratt regarding the business office? WNESU board. There's a meeting tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, there is a WNESU meeting to discuss negotiations, the similar discussion that you guys will be having later on.
Okay. And we haven't had, there's not been an SU meeting since this last board meeting, so.
No, they haven't.
And committees?
No committees, just the negotiations committee.
Okay.
Doing a lot of.
George? Yes?
Yeah, so there's been some correspondence between myself and Mrs. Hazard, Mr. Nemlich, about the SIP committees. I was wondering if anybody could clarify for not only Jason, who's getting involved, but for myself, what the roles, responsibilities of that representation would look like, and again, offer to those folks, if there was a need, I would be willing to assist with that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that, George. So the Continuous Improvement Plan Committee meets to take a deeper look at the Continuous Improvement Plan. It's a little different than we had last year, because last year we submitted one plan that represented all the districts. So this year we're still doing that, but each school has its own SIP plan. We don't send those up to the state. We still send the SU-wide SIP plan up to the state for approval. But this year the difference is that the SIP plans, the continuous improvement plans at each school are more, they go a little deeper than just the SU plan. And so when you come together and you look at the SIP plan for that particular school, it's an opportunity for the boards to ask questions that they're seeing on the plan. And you might have suggestions that you want to see if something that you're curious about is covered in the plan. If it isn't, why not? And you may have suggestions that we could add to the plan, or clarification of how what you're asking falls into the plan. So it's just a matter of having a board representation to really understand the continuous improvement plans the same level that the rest of the school does. So you play a very active role within that group as with the principals and the teacher and the board and the community member. So it's a pretty lengthy document. So the more eyes we have on it, the better. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else on that topic?
Just a question, Rick. Jason Benson was our representative, but is that the one that I was on as alternate, or do you remember?
I don't think so, because
I can go back and look it up.
George?
Yeah, I don't think so, because I was on it last year, but it was seemed to be a little more stale than what these folks have been doing this year. So I think it was Jason was heading that up.
Yeah, I know Jason was heading it, but
Right.
I wasn't sure. Okay, and I'll look.
Well, again, I'll put it out. Again, I'll put it out there if I can contribute in any way. in any capacity, I'd be glad to do so. I don't have a burning desire to do so, but if there's a need, I'd put myself out there for that.
And that would be wonderful because you would have a background in it.
All right. Unfinished business for discussion and action, upcoming considerations for next school year. It sounds like there's still a lot of questions on what's going to happen next year. Is there anything that the board needs to help with, should be advised on? Any plans for, it sounds like we're going ahead with plans to reopen in the fall as normal. Is that true?
No, not really. I mean, they've
Okay.
given us, you know, one of the plans that they've given us, Rick. I mean, they, the state gave us an A, B, and C, like I was discussing earlier, that they want us to come up with plans for every scenario. Right now, we don't even, you know, we're still trying to wait to see what summer learning is going to look like, if we're going to have summer learning, because now they've approved it for private, you know, camps and those things, but not really for public aspect of it. So I think for the board to know is that the administrative team, each school, they're working very hard to come up with a plan. You know, a total of 3 plans really. And right now we're just trying to come up with the questions that we're going to want answered in order to move forward to generate these plans. So if boards have questions in regards to, if they think of something that I would say, you know, send it to me and I can forward on to the school, or you can share it with your, you know, the chair can share it with the principal directly. I think right now, no, you know, we're trying to anticipate as many different questions as we have as possible. For instance, you know, I had a question about, you know, buses. You know, if there's a, you know, if things are under the current structure, and even if they raise it to 25 students like they might, and they say we're going to open the schools for, you know, as a hybrid, or we're going to open the schools, how does that look for transportation if we can't put more than 10 kids or 25 kids on the bus? You know, so there's a lot to go into that. So I think any of us who are working on the plans, you know, for the board, if you have questions, we'd love to have them, because it may be something that we didn't think of.
Jason, Terry?
Mr. Pratt, along those lines, do they seek our opinion, being on a board, or is it just like, are we just getting the information secondhand? Do they look at the numbers when they're going to open up? Who does that other than the governor? You know, just with the numbers and the stats so low with, you know, what's out there, it just seems odd that we're, you know, I get the plan part. I think that's good, but it just, I don't know. Personally, I think we need to get moving here with a lot of stuff, and the transportation thing is a good point. And if we're not going to have people on the bus, even if we're fully healthy and we're not going to have people on a bus, so that's something to look at. So, you know, it's kind of a couple questions there to hit you with, but it's just, you know, just
No, they're you know, they're relevant questions. I think right now is that the states, the governor's making most of the decisions, you know, making all the decisions, and once the decisions are made, he reaches out to the Secretary of Education. Secretary of Education has, you know, weekly meetings and updates, or with superintendents every Wednesday or Thursday. And then on Friday, you know, we get the same information everyone else gets in the news and everything. We don't get anything any sooner. So the decisions, we don't have a whole lot involved in the decision-making process in regards to when schools, you know, should be open or shouldn't be open, or what the issues that we might experience. I think a lot of times a decision is made, and then we have to plan in response to whatever decision has been made at the state level. I know the VSBA, the Vermont School Board Association, has been holding meetings every once in a while right now related to, you know, the districts that don't have current budgets. But for the most part, Jason, it's just, you know, we get our marching orders when we get them, and we try to do the best we can to put something in place based on our marching orders. So not a whole lot of sway.
Yeah, thank you. It's just frustrating from being a parent, and then also being a parent and a taxpayer. And it's just, you know, it's what it is, I guess.
Yeah, we don't really, by the time it reaches the local level, Jason, superintendents really don't have much say in what the marching orders look like.
Understood.
George, saw your hand up.
Yeah, I just want clarity. These are actual mandates, right? I mean, I know it's different on this level rather than me as a personal Vermont citizen, but you're saying these are mandates, and there's no way we could work outside of their mandates, or are they strong suggestions? Meaning, is there any wiggle room at all based on, let's say, we or you or administration of this area felt differently than what the state says? How much flexibility do we have to make our own choices?
None. Based on opening schools, none. We have no say at all. It's all mandated from the governor.
I would be highly disappointed if we don't open schools in the fall based on what we're looking at for numbers right now, just for the record. It's not anything to you, it's leadership of the state, but I would be highly disappointed if that's what happens.
The only leeway we're gonna have is if, say, is a hybrid approach. If they say open schools and we don't have a lot of kids who feel safe coming back, then we have I guess we don't have leeway, then we have to offer that. So, but yeah, that's, exactly what you're talking about, George. Exactly. It's mandated from the governor, and superintendents don't have a say in whether or not their school's open or close at this point.
I see Priscilla's got her hand up, but just to close my point, he tells me to stay home and not go out if I don't have to, and I do anyway because that's my choice. Just leaving that there.
I agree with you, George. It's frustrating.
Priscilla?
I wanted to comment that the universities are up, even around Burlington, where we really have a huge, all of our COVID cases for the most part are centered. They are talking about 15,000 students, and the governor is still planning to look, figure out a way for them to hopefully be there and opening. So I think we should at least be, thinking that that's going to happen and that it will open, and maybe having a plan. And we can always have to go back to the other stuff, but I know he is not looking at, wanting us to have to be in the situation we're at now, because he said today clearly that, boy, he really did not want to be.
Yeah, and I look at it as our role is that we have to hope for the best and plan for the worst and be prepared for whatever the decision is made, and that's what the task force are for, because we just want to be as proactive as possible with the unknown. So I agree with you, Priscilla. Yes.
And I appreciate your planning, totally.
Anything else? So, number B, how can the Rockingham School Board influence current education tax system? So Mr. Terry presented a letter that he wrote that he would like to send to the town, endorsed by the Rockingham School Board, which I am not sure is actually a school board item. But I'm willing to listen to a little bit of discussion on it. I believe all the board members have had a chance to read it. George, Priscilla, Jason, Benson.
Yeah, I'll make a comment to start with if nobody else is ready to go. I like the idea that we're, Jason especially, is interacting with the town. I don't know that it's really part of our scope as a board to be looking at how they should be saving money or making cuts or helping disperse the tax burden. I guess me personally, I would like to know. So the big burden here is first thing is, what is the town losing for grants and income from the state? So education is getting hit hard, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. That's where the big hit's coming from. I would like to see not just the education system in this town have to make sacrifices. So anything coming from the Rockingham board to the town, I guess it would have to be kind of along those lines. What would the town be looking to do to help alleviate the education burden? I don't know that the specifics of this letter down in the last two paragraphs really drive it home for me. I think they're good stuff. I just don't know that it's something the board should be bringing to the town, and be more of an individual basis, I would think. Just because it's outside the scope of what we're doing.
Priscilla, you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's definitely outside our scope. I do like the fact that Jason has gone to some of the meetings, and I think that's great as a taxpayer. I applaud him in all of his efforts. And as a community member, I hope that he continues to go and addresses some of those issues that he feels that the select board can address. I feel that it is not up to us to be telling the select board anything that they should be doing. That is up to them. As an individual and as a taxpayer, I can go and talk to them and make suggestions and do that. But as a board, it's not something that I feel we should be doing.
George, let me give Jason Benson a chance to speak. Jason Benson, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think it's great to open up a dialogue with the Town of Rockingham board, but as everybody has discussed here, it's not our duty to specifically tell them where they need to be putting the budget, and it might not be in our best interest to do that sort of direction. But opening up a dialogue and a discussion with the town board is certainly in our best interest. So to sum it up, don't tell them where to get the money, but do work with them and see if they have input as to what some of their sacrifices are going to be, because we're certainly going to have to make some. And that's about it.
George, I'd like to give Jason Terry, since it was his letter, just a chance to speak if he wants to before you get to go again.
Sure thing. Can I just make one quick comment before he does? Is that I don't think the town would take this as being offensive or anything of the sort. I think it's a very respectably written piece, and go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
No, whatever. So when I joined the board, you look at things as running a business, and Mr. Pratt said this is like running a business on the board. It's like running a business, but it's also not like running a business, because it's just not. There's a lot of opinions, and that's fine. I respect everyone's opinion. But as I noted when I first ran and was elected, if you want to increase sales, you got to have more money, and otherwise you got to cut expenses. So one way to do it is to increase your revenue from the taxpayers who are not paying their fair share. This town has 44% rental. Of that, 65% is rentals, which has an impact usage. So you're burdening single-family homeowners with flipping the bill of this tax. And as I've learned, with everything being closed, meals, lottery, sales tax, there's a shortfall of money, which then it goes on single-family homeowners. So that's a lot of money to burden, and people will not be able to afford to live here with the tax rate going up. I want great things for the schools. I want everything that everyone else wants for the schools. I'm here for the kids. I don't like asking tough questions every meeting and getting beaten over the head because I ask challenging questions. So as a taxpayer, the town already knows this. They're well aware of this. I'm simply doing a respectful thing and letting you folks know what I'm doing as a taxpayer, and that the select board and the lister's office is already aware of what's going to happen. They've already contacted me and said that with the new incoming manager, it's one of the first things that the person's going to be looking at. And so it's challenging. It's a challenging thing to be on a school board. You know, we have in our some of our bullet points on action steps is to be involved with the community. So I envision a system of people working together, us with the high school and with the town, to better the community for the kids. Not personal. I'm going to pay my taxes if they go up or not. They're going to go up 14%. I have no choice but to pay them. So it's only fair if I'll use an example. The single family home across the street from my house, which is actually 12 apartments, pays their fair share of a commercial property tax, not a single family tax. You know, they have a higher impact usage than I do. So I'm just trying to be professional and, you know, let you guys know why we should do this, and we should continue to work with the community. You know, I had help writing the letter. You know, I'm no expert at this stuff, but I reached out to somebody who's really good at this stuff. And, you know, I respect that gentleman's opinion, who's also on a school board, who helped me write this letter. And, you know, so a lot of us want this to happen. So, you know, I'm just doing the right thing, I thought, by letting you folks know what my intentions were. I'm going to be very transparent in what I'm going to do. I'm not going to have any surprises for Mr. Pratt or anybody. I think that's the right thing to do by being transparent and being upfront and honest. So you're always going to get that from me. So thank you.
George, did you have something else, or were you finished on your last?
I was finished on my last one. I might have something brewing here, but you can ask other folks.
Okay. So I think, yeah, so Jason, I think to your point, it is the school board it runs like a business, but it is different. And as you guys are all learning, as I have learned, it's a really tough thing with state mandates and finding the right balancing act of what our mission is. I think for us, I think a really big place for us to put energy is with the state and how education tax is distributed there. And those rules and laws are something that we should be putting some energy into and learning how that system works, and that we are actually getting the dollars back that our community puts into those coffers. And you know, and that doesn't take away from your efforts and ideas of like, how do we get our community to be well balanced and get the right monies back. But I think that it'd be a shame to see you successful in this idea and endeavor, and then have us not get the money because the state decides that some other town needs it more than we do, through their confusing distribution system. So.
Yep.
So I'm open to hearing if anybody has anything more they would like to talk about or discuss on this, or shall we move on to our next? Priscilla?
Yes, I think we really need to encourage the state in either as individuals or, and I don't know whether the board can do that one, but definitely as individuals to be funding some of the stuff back to us. They're funding childcare support things. They're funding support for businesses and all of those things. So I think they should be looking to the federal government maybe to get some grants coming into the state so that we can get money from that for our educational system, because we should not have the shortfalls that we're talking about. Thanks.
Thanks, Priscilla. George?
Yeah, I'm going to start by saying I don't have a problem with what's written here. All right. I will say that people who own rentals, especially the ones who only own one or two, are not making any giant amount of dollars. That being said, they should be zoned appropriately and taxed appropriately. I think part of what, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, you're finding inaccuracies in the grand list, right?
Yes.
Those should be corrected. I don't have a problem with that. I guess what I would like to see instead of, again, I think part of this should be an individual presentation to the select board. What I would like to know is how much government assistance is the rest of the town getting compared to just the education portion. And if we're when I say we, the education portion, if we're the ones taking the big hit, I'm sorry, if just the education, the schools are taking the big hit, how is the town going to assist in making some tough decisions like that have been made by administration already? So I would like, as far as from board representation, I would like to see that kind of stuff being asked. That's, I guess, where I'm at.
Yeah, and I agree that, the intent of the letter is
I think it's great.
great. It's just, is it the right thing to come from the school board? So don't feel like you're
Because
getting beat over the head, Jason. It's just a learning curve.
I'd like to say a little something more. In the grand scheme of things, the correction to the grand list isn't going to cut it. 14% is a lot. That's a lot, and that's not going to cut it. So the town has to also look at their budget, and they're going to have to make decisions too.
Yeah, I think they are. I think what's really happening, everyone, it's with everything being closed the way it is, and every day it's more and more dollars on the back end that we're all going to have to pay. And if anyone is not scared of the financial implications that's going to happen for years, it's going to get worse, and financially for a lot of people. And people are already unemployed. We're talking about maybe not coming back in the fall. Just the unknown. It's not good, and I'm nervous. I want a great school system. I want to pay the teachers, what they're worth. I want. It's just frustrating.
One more. I got more, I guess.
Okay, George's first year on the board didn't say a word.
I'm going to close with this, and this just so I can say it publicly, because I feel really strongly about it. We've done our job. We've flattened the curve. It's time to let people go back to work. Done.
Priscilla?
Second that.
Jason, I have to comment on this comment. You said pay the teachers what they're worth. I saw something on Facebook just the other day. Someone put on there that he thought that every single teacher should get 1.7 million per day for all they're going through and everything they do. I don't think they'll ever be able to pay them what they're worth at this point.
All right. Shall we move on to board goals and discussions?
Yep.
So, yes, Priscilla?
Okay, so did all of you get the one that I sent out for you?
Yes.
What I did,
Can you share that for us, Chris?
Right, and what I
Like
did,
Paul.
in number 3, there was kinds there, and I know it was kids, but we need to replace it probably with either children or students, depending upon, I was thinking about the early elementary one, the early preschool type ones, maybe we want to put children, because all of our children only go up till 8th grade, so we could put children there. And then in number 2, in my notes, when I went back to my notes from that meeting, the 5/6/19 meeting, it said engage students, so I like engage better. So I would change those two if the board is in agreement. On numbers four,
Hang on.
I think you're moving a little too fast for everyone there,
Okay.
Priscilla.
Go down.
sorry.
What was the first one? Where are you?
The first one was under goal number 1, number 3, where
Okay.
it said the needs of all kinds at all levels in all areas. It should be probably children or students. And I put in
Well-
mine with, it was supposed to be kids, but
It-
kinds, so children maybe would be better.
I'm wondering if the reason it said kinds is because it was to incorporate staff
No,
as well.
No, it was kids. In the notes, it was kids when I went back. It just ended up with an N in it.
So can I ask one quick question?
Uh-huh.
So you were looking at these that were, did you have the ones from September as well?
Yeah, this is 4/1/19.
Okay,
And that was that one. And I went back to 4/1/19 to look at my notes, and it was kids that it was. And so it should be children instead of kinds. And it
So-
just got done. And then when I looked at 5/6/19, which is number 3, also under goal 2, I had the word engage written in my notes. We had used the word engage. And so I think we should put engage in there rather than include. And I put those in bold and in italics so you could see them if the board is in agreement with those. If you don't agree, that's fine.
George,
Those are the only
you've been
ones,
trying to get in for a
ones
minute?
that were printed.
I don't want to get nitpicky, but I mean, did we approved minutes from what was proposed, not from Priscilla's notes, right?
Right.
That's what was typed in the minutes.
Okay, and we approved those,
Back
right?
on 4/1/19 and on 5/6/19 was kids was there.
My point is, I don't have a problem changing it, but
We have to vote on it. We would have to approve it. Yes.
yeah, I don't have a big problem. My point is that we, at the time, approved the minutes for that meeting. So those would take precedence over what you had written down or whatnot.
Right. That's why I
For
said,
myself.
that's why I left it there and put it in parentheses so you can look at it to decide if you want to do that or don't want to do that.
Okay,
Because it's a board decision. It's not my decision. It's a board decision. Okay. But the original, I'm going back to those so I can find them. On page 2 of the minutes for April 1st, it says kids. KIDS. It's on page 2 of the minutes from April 1st, 2019. So when Jason typed this up to put it on to share it with you later, as he said, it's taken from the board minutes of 4/1/19. It just got typed incorrectly and changed to kinds. Because in the minutes on 4/1/2019, it is kids, KIDS. I kind of would prefer not to have kids in there, so I thought if you would agree to change it to children, it might be better. But
Okay.
that's up to you to decide.
I don't really have a problem with that. I think we're getting caught in the weeds here. Has
Yeah.
everybody
Oh, on those two, yes.
has everybody looked over them? I mean, is there anybody have
Okay.
anything to add or anything to change like that? I mean, these are basic. It's basic to me. It's language around the obvious, but
Right.
whatever.
So those are the only two I'd like to see changed in the things that were printed and shared with us back in September. Those two things on number 3 in goal 1 and goal 2. Then I went to goal 4 and I grabbed all of my notes from back, and that's why it says in progress, taken from notes. Those action steps have not been approved. The goals were what we agreed on, but the action steps were not. So I was trying to help you out and take it from all the information that Karen gave and Margot gave and everybody at the meetings gave, and put them in on here so that you could look at them according to what they did and then decide if you want them or decide on a different thing. You know, it's totally up to the board to decide that.
So just to kind of get us on track and so we can make a little progress here, the only question I hear for goal number 1 right now is by supporting and meeting the needs of all kinds at all levels in all areas. Do we want that to be should that be children? Should that be students? Citizens?
I mean, do we want to, well, teachers has already mentioned in number 2. I'm fine with students. I don't, like I said, it's kind of in the weeds here.
Yeah, it should be just an easy, we'll just call it students. Is there anything else in goal 1 that anyone feels that we need to change in any way? Going once, going twice, other than that? Goal 2, improve community input engagement. By using technology to increase the knowledge of and the participation in school board. Did you have any? So the only change you had, Priscilla, was in number 3?
Number 3, we originally had said engage, but I think it did get typed the way it's there. So it's up to you, you know, to decide if you want. I'll pull it up. Let me see, it was, which one was it? Oh, 5, 6. Yeah, 5, 6. Set school boards.
So I believe the intent was more than include. I think that we intentionally used the word engage in hopes that we could
Make them more active.
Yeah, that engagement, active participation.
So is there a question being asked right now?
I think we just leave it as was originally written, where it would say engage.
Jason's got his hand up.
Jason?
I just had a question about these goals. You guys started these back in September last year.
Oh, no, we started them back in April last year.
Okay. Can we just approve these and move forward, or not approve them? I didn't get it till late, but when I'm usually writing a goal, you know, you got to make it sure it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and trackable. And how are we going to track any of these goals? I mean,
Well, that's what we're trying to. That's the whole idea, is to try to make it into that document. Is how to. We struggled a lot with all the things that you just mentioned there.
Yeah, when they started working on this, you know, we went over, you know, SMART goals, and you know, they do need to be measurable. So, you know, that's what they're trying to break down now.
So I guess to your point, Jason, is like, does this board agree with these goals, or do we want to update and change them? Because these are goals that were started by the old boards.
I agree with them, and let's move forward, and we can change them as we go, can't we?
Yeah. And one of the things that we meant that we had intended to try to do at some point was to review one of the goals at each meeting and try to gauge how we were doing on it and how we could start to build upon the action items and fulfill the action items.
I think it's a good start. I like them. Let's just keep moving forward, I guess.
Okay, so number 3, did everyone get a chance to look at 3?
Yes.
And 4 was kind of where we got stuck.
Well,
I wanted to say to George, I appreciated George bringing that up last meeting, and I was totally wrong. I thought they were in, that we had approved those, and George was right. We had not approved those. That's why I went back to all the notes and put these in a form that we could look at, and you may or may not like them. It's up to you.
So in 4 and 5 were progress that we never completed or made much progress because we went into budget season.
I had a three or 4 page document that I pulled the stuff from where we had discussed them, and went and pulled out what Margot said and what Karen said and what George said and I said and you said, Rick, and tried to make them as close to what we were saying as possible. But like I said, they can easily be changed if somebody wants to revise them or change them in any way you want.
So I just want you to know that I appreciate all the extra and putting those in there. It's helpful for us than rather than go back and try to start from scratch. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm okay with them how they are personally. I like the idea of going back and touching them on an individual basis, and to keep them actually current. And like Jason said, we can make changes as we go if it's deemed appropriate and we feel it's necessary.
So if somebody wants to format these we can go ahead and we can consider this our first read, and then at the next meeting we can actually vote to approve these as our current goals and then begin to start working on them. Does that work for everyone?
We're just making them a part of our semi-monthly routine, right? And when you say working on them,
right, like Chris, I don't know if we need to have them approved for anything related to our Act 40. So some of this came out of the whole like Act 46 and alternative governance structure and various things that we were doing there was one of the reasons that we started on this. Do we need to formalize these in any way?
No, you don't have to approve them. I think you just have to, I would say, adopt them and make a motion to adopt them and have it in the minutes for future board members.
So I would entertain a motion to adopt them.
real quick before that, I kind of feel like these are more of like a charter that should just be brought to the surface, little by little not little by little, but in small pieces over time. I mean, when you say take action on them, I mean, every week are we going to have, some sort of, I don't know, to-do list based on these goals? Or
I think just reviewing them and kind of asking ourselves the question is, are we doing what we said we were going to do? Because otherwise we shouldn't even just waste any time with this document at all.
Kind of was my point. All right, well, I'm good. Are you entertaining a motion? Is that what you said?
To adopt, yeah, I would entertain a motion to adopt them as presented with the corrections noted.
I'll make that motion to adopt these goals as written with corrections noted.
Any further discussion? Jason Terry, just because you're first in line on my list.
I have nothing.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Jason Benson?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Okay, we have our goals set.
So for clarity on future agendas, it may just show one portion of these goals as a touch point rather than I'm trying to understand, I guess, because when I first started, these goals were a thing, and we kind of pushed them off, and I just want to understand how we're going to be utilizing these.
So I think that should be a discussion we have at our next meeting.
All right.
Now that we have them, how are we going to utilize them? How are we going to use them? I think that having them on the agenda the way that they are with the higher level goals there, for now is, but Chris, can you make sure that we have an agenda item to, now that we've adopted the goals, how do we make use of them?
And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that part of it, because again, I feel like it's in the weeds, but if they're there, how are we going to get utilization out of them to effectively help us? I don't know if there's even a way, but
Well, I think what you focus on, if you want to keep them on the surface so they're just not being buried in minutes, is that you know at the next meeting maybe you take goal 1 and say, okay, how are we going to measure this? Because you have them down, you have the action steps down there, but you gotta find out how you're going to measure this, and that way at the end of the year you have a tool to say, okay, hypotheses, did we prove it? That's pretty much what you're looking at.
If nothing else, COVID-19 brought us technology to increase knowledge of and participation in our board meetings with the community.
Certainly has.
Priscilla had her hand up prior to that.
Priscilla?
Rick, I think they also are important for the SIP team, because the SIP team looks at those in keeping with what its ones are. So I think that's another reason why we needed them, so that it went along with their goals and what they're doing.
Okay.
You align very well so far.
All right, moving right along, new business for discussion and action. I want to formally thank Chris and Lynn for foregoing their pay raises for this year. That's a very generous offer on their part. B, follow up on the enrollment statistics and plans for optimal teacher to student ratios. Someone?
I mean, I didn't put that on the agenda, but I can say that, this has been a big problem. We all know that statewide student enrollment continues to drop. If you look at any of the data that the state has pushed out there, Rebecca Holcomb, Secretary Holcomb, put up a lot of information on the growing gap between teacher ratios and students in Vermont, and it's a statewide problem. And over the years, we've all been part of discussions in regards to how we're going to deal with that. So I think the enrollment's going to continue to decline, but I know that for Wyndham Northeast, it's been pretty level. It hasn't really decreased much over the past 10 years. For this SU, and a lot of SUs, you're not seeing that. So I think it's something that, everyone always continues to look at. I know for administration and myself, it's always on the back burner in regards to, anticipating if enrollment continues to drop, what is that going to look like without jeopardizing the quality of education that we're giving students. But as classrooms get smaller, schools get smaller, I mean, those are discussions that every school board is talking about. There are a lot of school boards out there who had to make the difficult decision to close schools or consolidate schools because of the low numbers. So, I'm not sure why it's on the agenda, but it is something that we need to keep an eye on in regards to moving forward. And if enrollment, if we see a large decline in enrollment, what is that going to look like for Wyndham Northeast? I know that's something that's always on the back burner, and we're always at the focus of my and my administration's conversations.
Jason, do you have any follow-up? You had asked for a bunch of information on this, and
Yeah.
I know you have some interest. So, if we can define better what it is that what you would like to see come out of this,
So
other than we're looking at it.
thank you, Rick. Mr. Pratt, thank you for getting me those, all of us, that information. So what I did is I took your information and I sent it back to you. I think you received that. I put it in a spreadsheet for everyone to see instead of sifting through the 16 years of data you gave me. So basically, we're about 100 students less on average over the 10 years, and out of all of including the high school. And then if you look at Leland and Gray and that area and Brattleboro, that just that part of the state, we're several hundred students less. So, my feeling and my gut, tells me that, we're being taxed quite a bit, and weather, tax and weather, and that's my gut says that's why people move away. And so I think as you're preparing for, as you said earlier, plan for the, hope for the best, plan for the worst. I think that's something you got to look at with the student to teacher ratio and further negotiations. If the population continues to go down and you still have the same teachers that you had 10 years ago, what are we going to do? So we got a tough job ahead of us. All of us do. I think it can be done. We got to be willing to do the work and make tough decisions and be able to say no. So I don't know. I don't have the answers, but the data shows people are leaving, and it is what it is.
Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Jason Benson. I don't have video tonight, but no, I think we need to adapt with the times and take a very thorough look, like Jason Terry has said, and see how our numbers are looking and see how our ratios are looking. Because if we're having overstaffed schools and under attendance, then we really need to seriously step back and say, is this where we want to be? And could we make it better for what we have, utilizing our resources in a different manner than we have been? But no, the opportunities in this area are not here what they used to be. A lot of industry is closed. A lot of people are leaving the communities. And we have to really think about that it's our duty as the board to make sure that everything is accounted for. That's about it.
Thanks, Jason. George?
Kind of goes in line, and it's something that just needs to be said in regards to student to teacher ratio. If we were just able to riff that many paras, what was the number, 36, 34, somewhere in that neighborhood?
36.
And I know this has been ongoing for years prior to probably just about all of the upper administrators here. But if we're able to do that and still supposedly meet the IEP requirements, then that shows some serious reckless hiring over the years, and not a very good look at these ratios. And maybe it doesn't go in line with this, but it just needed to be said. And I think we're going to come out of this thing better off. Maybe it'll take a couple of years, few years, several years, I don't know, but I think just getting that point across that we've let a lot of people go right there and we're still supposedly meeting our IEPs, to me that shows reckless hiring over years.
Thank you, George.
Priscilla?
Letting the 36 go, what doesn't mean we won't need some of those in the fall though, because some of those, a lot of that was individual, and we may need more individual. There's a lot of emotional concerns and social concerns our principals talked about tonight that we need to be facing. Also, ratios don't tell the true picture, because ratios take into account your janitors, your secretaries, your lunchroom people and all of that. So be careful when you talk about ratios. What we need to do is look at true classroom size and see how that is comparing. I do know that in the 27 years that I worked in this district, that the first year I was there, there were many more teachers than there were the second year I was there. They let go 10 teachers that year, and the numbers were declining. Now that's the high school. I haven't looked at the elementary. I'm glad Jason's looking at some of that stuff. We also need to look at administrative levels to see how that's working out, and secretarial levels and all of that as well. But I think it's a good thing that he started that process and looking at that.
Well, to counter that briefly, Priscilla, I would say ratios are one metric to look at, because if we had 37 janitors that are setting that off, then we still need to like understand why. So it doesn't, it doesn't matter if it's janitors, cooks, teachers, paras, if there's, that if they're all part of the ratio, they're all part of the concern. Jason?
Good point.
Just last to your point, Rick, Mr. Pratt, the new gentleman who's starting, I'm assuming that that's one thing that he's going to do. I've done that a lot, is look at efficiencies and how efficiencies are. So I'm assuming, I'm hoping, I'm praying he'll do that, is because that's in your email. That's what you said. You had a lot of background in as far as those types of things, or maybe I read it wrong.
No, you are correct. That's exactly one of his main priorities.
It is.
Good.
And it's one of those decisions I'm not going, that he'll have creative control based on his expertise and his qualifications that he's had over the 20 plus years in coming into offices and doing exactly what he wants. He's the professional with this and having the business background, so I'm going to respect that. I'll be kept in the loop, but he's going to have creative control in bringing the office to where it needs to be.
Good. Hopefully he has my number.
I'm sure we'll find a way to get it to him.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, if no further discussion on that, we can move on to approving the local education agency plan and authorize the chair to sign. This is an annual just event that we do every year. Does everyone know what the LEAP is? And if not, can Mr. Pratt explain it?
Does anyone want the explanation?
I would.
Okay, so Priscilla, you're familiar with this as well, aren't you?
I missed what Rick said.
The LEAP?
Oh, the LEAP. Okay. Yes.
In special education in regards to
Right.
the funds that we get, and we're pretty much saying this is how we're going to use them. We have to, we just can't use them any way we want. And so this is just pretty much agreeing to the terms of taking the special ed funds that we use every year. So, we're not going to use them outside of the realm of what is in the LEAP and what we're using it for.
So we're approving the chair to.
What usually, I know in the past what happened is that the SU chair usually approves it, but I wanted to be all the boards to be on the same page in regards to this is what it is, because I think we're the board. One of the things the boards have is is the money, and I think grants are part of that. The federal funds are part of that. So I just wanted boards to be aware and be part of the process of each level approving. Yes, we give the chair authority to tell the SU chair to go ahead and sign it.
Priscilla's got her hand up, Rick.
Priscilla?
Yeah, any of the grants and any of those funds, there are specific, very specific criteria that you have to satisfy in order to get that money, or they will take the money back away from you. You apply for the grants and then you do that. One of the programs that it covers is mentoring for new teachers that are coming in. You'll have a teacher who's been there a few years and they mentor them and they have to go through a whole plan for the entire year of what they're doing. They also have funds for the special ed students that are covered. The teachers and special ed teachers and paras do a analysis usually in February and October, November timeframe, somewhere there, twice a year, and their funds are based on those findings and what they are actually seeing the students, and all of that's accounted for there. So there's a real tough accounting system that goes into effect for all of these funds.
And that's exactly right. And that's what the LEAP is. They're saying, you're going to take this money. This is how you're going to use it. No exceptions.
I will entertain a motion to approve for the chair to sign the LEAP agreement if the board is so desires.
So moved.
Any further discussion? Mr. Terry,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Appointments. I don't believe we have any appointments. Director's comments. Mr. Terry?
Are we still going into an executive session? Is that later? Or?
Yeah, it's just an informational. There won't be any action coming out, so
Okay.
I was going to do that at the end.
So my comments are that, again, not to beat a dead horse, but I am here for the kids. For any staff member or board member to think that I'm not here for the kids, I encourage you to either call me or email me directly. If there's comments, I prefer to talk it out like an adult. You are always going to get my honesty, and please do not confuse my passion with aggression. I do respect each and every one of you. I do respect you as people, as adults, as parents, as colleagues. My best memories growing up were of the teachers that I got to know, and all the friendships that you made. So I've coached thousands of kids over several decades, been involved with the community for decades. So I think as you folks get to know me, you will understand who I truly am. Somebody's going to give 100%, not know how to not give 100%, and not know how to care. So going forward, I encourage you all to just, if there's something I say, most of the time it's, sarcastic humor. So it means nothing other than that. So I can work on that. But I also would like you folks to work on, picking up the phone and calling me if you have a question. So trying to do the best for the family, for the kids in this town, and for our community. So thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Priscilla?
That's a tough act to follow, Jason. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Yes, I feel that it's absolutely paramount, so important for all the administration, the teachers, the paras, every person in that staff that works in the schools and on the boards to work at the best we can to make the best school that we possibly can. And especially in this emotional time, because there's going to be a lot of trials for us to face and a lot for us to do, encouraging the state to fund our education and do all of that, getting the federal government to do some more grants for our state and that so that we can manage. Thank you.
Thanks, Priscilla. George?
Yeah, I just want to say that I really like this board. I think there's a lot of different personalities with a lot of different angles, a lot of different point of views, and I think that's kind of, that diversity is kind of what it's all about, and I really like that. It's going to come out like a question for admin, but I'm not looking for an answer. How is administration going to know how? Sorry, I can't read my notes. How effective paras are for kids on IEPs, meaning how are you going to measure that? Again, I don't need it to be answered right now, but there's got to be some way to know how effective the ones that are still, the ones that are here now currently and are working with their kids, trying to remotely, how is that being measured for their effectiveness? And for Mr. Pratt, and I guess this is more in regards to any type of, it's kind of outside Rockingham, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm still hopeful for some form of graduation, and we could be a leader and make something happen and do it right and do it effectively and doing it safe. Not the scope of this board, I understand. Closing with that. Thank you all.
Thanks, George. Jason Benson?
Yes, just on the SIP team committee, I'm look forward to moving things in a positive direction. At some point this week, I'll be meeting with Laura, and I do appreciate George's input on this as well, because it's somewhat new territory to me, but I think we'll work together and work it out pretty well. That's about it.
Thanks, Jason. And, I'd just like to comment, especially to all the newer board members, which is most everyone, that being on the school board is like probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, as far as trying to find like the right balance, what I think Jason Terry made some comment a while ago about the longevity of seeing the effects of what you do here. And I found it took me a few years to just figure out how everything functioned and operated to a point where I felt I could even contribute. And the longer you do it, for me at least, it seems the harder it gets. But I appreciate everyone's input. Anyone who joins the school board, in my opinion, is doing it for all the right reasons. And so I thank you all for being here. Do we have any agenda items for our next board meeting? The date of our next meeting, June 1st, 2020, 5:30 via Zoom. I would now entertain a motion to go.
One more thing, Rick. Is
Okay,
it
George.
too late for me to make a comment? Not to make a comment, but ask a question.
Okay.
Do we have any intentions on having these meetings like a hybrid in-person / Zoom, or is this the way it's going to be for a while? I'm okay either way, but I think we could start entertaining the idea of looking toward it in some future.
Mr. Pratt, when will we have access to a school building? They're all closed per the state right now, correct?
Correct.
You can come over to my house.
Okay. Will you have dinner for us?
Quite possibly.
Nice.
So let's keep that on our agenda we'll have that as a.
It doesn't have to be an agenda item. It's just.
Well, I mean, it's
easier to sit around a table and discuss things. You know?
Yeah.
So it's up to people's comfort level too. That's fine.
Yeah. And having a building that we can legally access. I'm not sure what I know I got reprimanded once before on a different public committee for having a meeting in a public place that was not a designated official meeting place. So, but I'm open for discussion on how we could make that work and what our options are for like a hybrid meeting. We could do it at work, George.
Whatever.
Okay, so our next meeting will be June 1st, 2020 via Zoom at this point. So I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a contractual matter which prior notice could cause either party harm.
I'll make that motion. Do I have to say all that?
No, I just said it for you. All in favor? Priscilla?
Yes.
Jason Terry?
Yes.
Jason Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt, would you like to stay with us?
Sure.
Can you put us into executive session?
Yep, just give me a minute to remove everybody out.